Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the FinTech Hunting podcast. We've got a phenomenal guest for you today. She's an author. She's an ABM and MarTech expert. She's a mortgage marketing powerhouse. Please help me welcome back to the show, Kelly Yale, Fractional CMO, innovation leader at Octo Strategies. Kelly, welcome back, my friend.
Michael, thank you for having me. I love the energy of the intro, right? It's Monday morning and yet you are bringing the heat and I love it.
Well, it is great to have you. You've written books. You have a wealth of knowledge and expertise. You've been in the trenches. So this isn't just talk, hype, what do we think? You've been doing marketing for lenders. You've run their whole campaigns. You've attracted millions, if not more, of business for. Let's talk then. So the stage is set. Everyone understands you have a wealth of knowledge and expertise. Talk to me about how you see marketing has changed in the mortgage industry in the current market we're in now.
Well, you know, when I was introduced to the industry in 2012, my entire background was marketing. And so I had no mortgage background whatsoever. So how has it changed? I remember when I did the marketing analysis of mortgage in 2012 and I was like, oh, so no. So the answer is no. Like not maybe there's some mortgage marketing, just nopes. And so I remember thinking, gosh, this is such a strange and obvious hole in the market that needs to be filled by people who want to create relationships. And what's funny about me at the time is that at the core of who I am is a community builder, right? So my understanding of how marketing and how sales works is let's create true community around our brand. Let's create true relationships through what we do. And it was really the automation of creating and sustaining and curating those relationships that ended up being sort of the foundation of everything that I learned to believe about how mortgage marketing works. And these days, you have a lot more people saying that.
Right.
I don't know how many people are doing it because it's still a conversation where people are like, gosh, I need to get better at this.
So let's dive in because I agree with you. I think people need to get better at it. And I think we hear a lot of the buzzword, build a relationship, build a community, but you actually know how to do it. And I love how you also mention technology's role in being able to do that. Because I think people are in a couple camps of, if I want to build relationships, I have nothing to do with technology. I just have to, physically talk to someone all the time. And that's not true. So talk to me how using technology and understanding the importance of building a relationship and not closing a transaction. And let's go through some of the steps to really educate people on this, because I think you're an expert in it. And a lot of people just misconceive it as, oh, relationship building, you just throw some posts out there.
Yeah. And one of the things that drives me crazy is, as a social media expert, as one of the first people in the country to have a social media agency, the way that we are so psychotically devoted to this concept that we're going to get loans from social media. And just because we started paying coaches who got a couple 100,000 followers, and all of a sudden it's like, if I can do it, you can do it. And it's just not true. And while I think social media is incredibly important, we also have to think about the appetite of our audience to constantly be bombarded by mortgage information. They are not interested in mortgage information unless they need a mortgage. And I'm not tearing down the concepts other people have built. I'm simply saying, if your expectation is that you're going to sit down in front of your green screen and point to things and tell people about the market, and you're only getting a little bit of engagement, the reason is it's just not something people want to talk about all the time. Do you follow car salesmen who talk to you about that? Do you follow your dentist? You're like, who do you really follow that you're like, gosh, I need to have this information? So when we think about relationships, right, especially one-to-many, one-to-one, easy, right? Hey, Michael, I like you. You like me. We're going to see each other at some things. We have a relationship. We both have podcasts and we work in a very similar field. It's a very easy conversation and now we're friends. One to many means that you have the framework in your life to create efficient ways to make people feel as though you're constantly paying attention. And that, my friends, is where we start relying on technology, right? So if I meet you, Michael, at a networking event and we're like, hey, I really like you, what do I need to count upon now? You to take about 6 different steps to make sure that we have a relationship. However, if, say, I have a campaign in my CRM that has maybe 5 or 6 emails and texts where I ask how I can be of value in the future in our relationship, where I ask you what makes a good referral for your business, where I connect us on social media platforms and say I want to be a fan of what you do, and then I say, also, I'm in mortgage. Let me tell you a little bit about what makes me different. You put a name in an email and clicked a button in your CRM. You now are connected to that person. They see your outreach. Whether or not they know that's automated doesn't matter because they don't have that automation plugged in.
Right.
And you are the driver of that relationship. Now, once they're done with that, once they're off that campaign, what value do you provide them long term? Right? This is a person that can easily be on a monthly or bi-monthly piece of marketing that you put out. Throw one of your videos in there. But remember that audience is specific, right? If we have all new people who could be potential referral partners in the future, then we should be talking to them about how to do that. So
Right.
often in the relationships we build, we don't teach people how to help us, and we don't ask people how we can help them. But once you solve that problem, and once you start thinking strategically about that relationship, once you start, go ahead in social media, like their post, comment on their post, show them that you show up. But at the same time, you're gonna have to take it the next steps, right? That's in person. That's God, belly to belly. If we're in mortgage, we gotta say belly to belly. But that's what leads to that. But relationship automation is not only an amazing thing we can have built out and at the ready, but truly will show people that we're intentional about having that relationship.
You brought up so many good points. I want to start diving into those
Yes.
because we're not anti-social. Social is very
Oh,
important, but I
yes.
think one of the challenges with social, to your point, there's been a lot of coaches out there, personal branding, personal branding, personal branding. That's all they do. So they make it all about themselves. To your point, and I love this, the first time I've heard that analogy of, do you follow your dentist? Do you follow the car salesman? No, I don't want to hear them pitching me about a car all the time. Now, people who share information and are informative, that adds value. Talk to me then how we balance all the people pitching the personal branding, and I understand there's a level of importance to that versus enterprise branding for the whole organization, because everyone can't just be in it for the personal brand. How do we mesh those two, and how do we have that one voice consistency across the organization? Because that's really what moves the needle.
Well, having headed up an enterprise solution that about 2,500 people at the company used, right? While simultaneously believing in my soul in personal brand. I feel like that balance is such an extraordinary thing. But a lot of people seek out personal brand as well because they don't have that enterprise brand or marketing products or things that they can share. That creates the need for a massive personal brand. Now, everyone should have a personal brand.
Yep.
Everyone should have social media, but we are talking the pieces and parts that really make this kind of stuff successful. Not that there's anything wrong with creating 100 videos all about loans in general, right? But where is the line, right? Technically, I believe that enterprise should be doing most of the content around loans,
Mm-hmm.
loan opportunities, things that the company is doing in the environment to create community. The personal brand, what you really need to do is you need to create something, distinguish yourself somehow with that brand, right? You and I have a couple of favorites, and it's funny because they're both blonde and they both have dogs. But Kayla and Ashley are
Yeah.
perfect examples. Also, Kayla says I talk about her on every podcast, so I have to drop it. But this is an interesting thing, right? These are both very intelligent, skilled people who have amazing mortgage prowess. But what did they do? Instead of leaning in on the fact that they are incredibly attractive women, they leaned in on the fact that they're dog mamas. Okay.
Right.
And that's how you know them. They didn't
'Cause
say, "Oh, I'm Mortgage Barbie." Hey, no, 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 no. And Kayla will do the extra nine where she, instead of having to be like, "Hey, here's what you should do with a VA loan," she'll grab a trend that's trending in social, and she'll do that video, and she'll morph it to mortgage, and it's super funny. But that's someone that you want to follow because she's talking dogs, she's talking rescues, she's talking fun.
their cottage and being on the boat and
See?
being on the water. She humanizes her brand in a
Right.
way that's highly engaging and wants other people to come in.
Yeah.
They come and share what it's like, even in the middle of winter. Here's what it's like in Minnesota. And you hear those different stories and it pulls you in. And I
Right.
think I love that distinction of enterprise, personal branding. Now let's kind of turn a little and let's talk AI. How is AI changing the game, especially for mortgage marketing?
It's interesting. I had a conversation 3 days ago with a very prolific producer who was telling me that they were scared of the future of AI. And we're talking about how you'll never take the human component out of it, blah, blah, blah. And I sat there kind of quietly because, as you and I both know, there's almost no point in having this conversation past a certain point because people aren't ready to feel what this means yet, right? We're just talking about it like a philosophy. So if we say right now, you can, as a consumer, go through an incredible experience online to almost the end, right? You can go to the end, but let's say almost because
Right.
I don't think people are ready. But here's the thing. If we boil down all of it, right? Having a having a fantastic database of human beings in which you are curating relationships, where you are sitting at the helm of that and being a good salesperson, those two critical components will never cease to exist. But your career is going to change, and probably the way that you're paid is going to change
Change.
because we're going to be able to find efficiencies via AI when it comes to how to support you building that business, support you processing those loans. There are going to be significant changes in the next 18 months that no one seems to be really that prepared for. But if you look at that as an opportunity instead of a scare tactic, if you think to yourself, I don't actually really enjoy discussing the nuances of an application with someone. If you think about the things that can take out of your hands so that you can focus on the true important thing, which is, Michael, I trust you. And
That's
we've
right.
had a relationship, and you've been talking to me about buying a house for years. I went through this great experience of applying, and now I'd like to talk to you about the results that were provided to me because I have my mortgage coach in front of me because it was already brought up, it was already automated and sent over so that I could compare these things. I've already done the heavy lifting of putting my bank account or tie my bank accounts to your application, and verification of employment is done, and my all of my documents have already been scanned so that you know how to have the right conversation. If I prepared you as a loan officer with an overall report created by AI based on this individual so that you can have a very focused conversation about them, with them, That is what the future of AI is going to look like. We don't have to be so scared of this pretend robot who's going to take over all the loans in the world. That's not the reality. But I will say it is far easier to have AI conversations with a tech company doing loans than it is with an IMB who wants to stand up tech. And that,
Right.
I'm sure you've seen, Michael, is one of those things where that's the thing that makes me more nervous than anything.
Well, and to your point, I mean, we have to think different. It's going to change compensation. It's going to change the nature of work, what we work on. I was reading an AI book this weekend and it talked about traditional business intelligence analyzes data and looks at what has already transpired.
Right.
AI enabled systems are going to start telling you what's taking place and what's next, and more importantly, what you need to do about it. And so I think one of the biggest shifts that I don't see taking place yet is that mind shift of companies really saying, we need to lean into AI. They're still treating it as, well, it's just some additional technology. It's just some automation. Some are putting their feet in, some are not. Some are just in a very small sandbox. And I think the ones that are leaning in are going to see major market share gains, to your point, in the next year, year and a half, that I think we need to be ready for. And those that aren't are going to just fall further and further behind.
Well,
So,
I was in an almost constant battle about this exact conversation from 2014 on because I was dragging an IMB to the future. They were certainly not hands in the air excited. But back then, the conversation was around CRM. I don't
yep,
need a CRM. I've got a legal pad. Okay, well, that's going to be fun. But here's the thing I know, while we were curating all these databases, while we were creating all these opportunities because we had data that could read opportunity, your pile of legal pads did literally nothing for your business.
that's
The
right.
CRM, that because we were building AI into our CRM before AI existed, right?
Yep. Start doing
That
machine learning.
100%.
Start. Yep.
We integrated all the platforms. Like, so let's use FinLocker as an example, right? Where does this get introduced? How does this get introduced? How do realtors understand how this is important? How does it work? Why is it beneficial? What data can we glean? And how does that go to the overall avatar of this buyer so that when they're ready to talk to us, we have the information, we know what they've been doing, we understand what they're interested in. We have in the background, the system has been talking to them, curating this relationship. So the loan officer's job should be to lean in at that time, right?
Right.
But CRM got the same kind of like, ugh, that AI is now getting because it was like, we don't need this to do business. I know you don't need it to do business, but you're going to be out of business if
Exactly.
you don't use it, if you don't understand it, and if you don't change your approach to business, not having to be so manual.
Right.
It
And so
doesn't,
reactive.
yeah, and you don't win a prize. You're running like 4 years ago, right? Loan officers with their hair on fire, running around, bad communications with the team. This processor's out, so out sick, so this loan went to the garbage can because no one can work on it beside Beverly.
Yep.
So imagine those problems that you had being solved by the fact that we can capture an entire conversation on the phone and have the notes in the file. We can have AI look at all this information and say, give me the result, the
Right.
answer. Tell me how I
What's the
pivot.
next step? What do I need to do with this
Yeah.
borrower? I've got another important question. You and I could talk for hours, so I want to make sure I get this in.
Yeah.
What are the skill sets that today's marketing departments need?
Oh,
Maybe a gap. Maybe there's something that this is what the marketing department of the past used to have, and here's what the marketing department skill set wise, what do you think they need to have?
I mean, I'd love to tell you that I wrote a book on this that was out in January of 2024 that is already obsolete, which it's obsolete. And if you don't take anything else from this conversation, at least take this. Someone who's incredibly proficient in marketing in mortgage is telling you that their book from a year ago, a year and a half ago, is already obsolete. That's what you should take, because the skill set of a CMO right now, in my humble opinion, a skill set of a really good marketing team has to be translation.
Yes.
Can you translate what sales needs into marketing? Can you translate what marketing needs into technology? And can you show each of those sides why it's so important to collaborate every single day for success?
Love it. The data, the analytics, being able to bring it to life, into, I think your point, being able to think and being adaptable is critical. Stuff that I taught on AI 6 or 9 months ago is irrelevant. Doesn't matter anymore. It's evolved so much, and it's going to continue to evolve. I was talking to a CEO the other day, and they're looking at hiring, and they're like, I don't care necessarily what tools they're using right now, because those are going to change in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. But I need to know that they can learn and easily adapt the latest, greatest tools that they're using.
Well, and not to be like, because I'm profoundly honest and say the things, here it is, right? I also have to count on a C-suite that doesn't have a ton of background in technology or AI, who likely are not immersed at all in creating and hiring these people and then managing these people,
Yep.
right? Because you can say all day, like, look, I look at some of I talked about this last week. I look at some of the marketing departments of some of these larger IMBs, and I'm like, is that 100 people? You have 100 US citizens right there? Is that 100 humans? I mean, you shouldn't need a marketing team bigger than 12 to 15 people, period.
Yep.
And I'll go one more step. That team, if they're led by the right people and they're the right team, are going to bring as many sales to you as your loan officers will. And I realize we don't believe in such a thing, right? We think we recruit the high volume, we treat them like stars, they're going to bring some volume, we'll all get back on track, blah, blah, blah. An incredibly dialed in marketing team will be able to support an entire enterprise. We'll be able to give strategy. We'll be able to be putting out that kind of video work that we talked about at the beginning, so that you can build your personal brand. But there's zero reasons, with the kind of efficiencies that we have now, to have some big bloated marketing team. In fact, if you're starting today to rebuild one, you just have to find the right leader. And finding the right leader ain't easy in this business. I'm here to tell you.
That's where fractionals come in and help quite a bit.
I mean,
Kelly, you are welcome back anytime. If people want to find out more about all of the great stuff that you're doing at Octo, and what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
When you start the world in social media, you have your @ on all the different platforms. And so I'm at Kelly Yale on every single platform. But I'm almost always stalking LinkedIn and talking having great conversations like this.
Kelly, I can't thank you enough for being a guest on this episode of the FinTech Hunting Podcast.
Thanks so much, friend.